Welcome to the Art of Conversation, the show where we pull back the curtain on the entrepreneurial journey, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Today's guest is someone who lives at the intersection of flow and the grind. He's a seasoned yoga teacher who took his practice off the mat and into the boardroom as a successful business owner. Profit Fitness offers tailored services to meet diverse fitness needs while nurturing a supportive community environment. In an industry that's supposed to be all about Zen, he's navigating the very real world of overhead, scaling, and staying creative. Britt's holistic approach and advocacy for a balanced lifestyle have made him a notable figure in the DC's wellness and fitness arena. So let's dive straight into it. Britt, what does success look like to you now versus when you first started?
That's a great question. I think there's a very distinct difference between success and fulfillment. When I first began, I wanted to be in front of as many people as possible. I'm good at this job. I know how to guide people through movement. I create these beautiful experiences. But now I want to feel fulfilled in my work and know that people actually genuinely walk away with something. It's more to me just showing up, providing an experience, but it's also something to me that people walk away, reach out and say, hey, this impacted me. I had this conversation with my father and now he's doing it. My child's doing it. That is true success to me. But also success is being a representation. I didn't have a lot of figures in my life when I was coming up and wasn't aware of wellness who looked like me, who spoke like me, who moved like me. And so simply being a black man from the South in the wellness space and being that representation, navigating the various places that I go to, that's important work to me as well.
Okay. Great. Creatives often struggle with the business of their craft. How do you stay authentic to the practice of yoga while still making the hard profit-driven decisions that keep the business going?
Yes. So this is a conversation I have with a lot of other yoga instructors, wellness instructors, spiritual, guiders, life coaches. That work requires authenticity. And the fundamental of nature in itself can be very cold. You have to make logical decisions that can be distinct from the work that we're trying to promote. And to flip the script on them, I like to say that the work that you do is healing in its nature. The work that you do is necessary in its nature, just like if you were to go to a lawyer, just like if you go to a doctor, just like if you go to a dentist. And by having more effective systems of operating your business, you have more opportunities to do more healing work and touch more lives in the world. So creating smarter business decisions will help you touch more lives more effectively. A lot of yoga instructors struggle with just the basic business work of it, how to market themselves. They have a sense of shame around identifying with the ego and promoting that out to the world. Again, I like to flip the script on them and say, no, you're expressing this modality of well-being to the world that is creative and authentic to you. And you should look at it not as, egotistically promoting yourself, but you should look at it as creatively self-expressing yourself. And so I think that could be helpful for people. And for me, I can be a bit shameless in how I push myself out there. I'm not afraid to learn what works and what doesn't work because I know the message is going to stick with somebody.
That's good. I definitely identify with that. I know you mentioned something earlier about trap yoga and being behind the camera. I kind of envision myself a bit of a trap cinematographer. Trap cinema is what I do. I'd like to put some really beautiful cinema on some, stove god cook beats. That's my angle, right? So I can definitely, identify with that. And as a business owner myself, I know being an entrepreneur has a lot of ebbs and flows. And I'm curious as to how you manage, how do you use your yoga training to handle, quote unquote, I won't call them failures, but I'll say the hard lessons that come along in entrepreneurship.
Yeah. As I was saying earlier, entrepreneurship has its rhythms. There's no balance in entrepreneurship. It's going to be highs, it's going to be lows. And you have to know how to regulate your own nervous system when you deal with those blows and when you deal with those wins. There are going to be things that come to you that doesn't make sense. But if you look at every single thing that happens in your life and in your business as an opportunity, you can creatively, and be reflexive with how you want to move forward in the future. Bruce Lee said, move like water. So everything that happens to you, you can work around it. And so for me, my yoga practice, especially when things are difficult for me, centers on breath. Our breath is the fastest way we can get into our nervous system. So if I'm stressed out, I have to take some deep exhales to release that tension in my body. If I'm feeling really revved up and I got to release some energy, well, I start to work out. I do some yoga flows. I may even go on a run or lift some weights. I move the body. The movement is medicine. And then the biggest part too is stillness. I allow myself to feel what I feel. Don't identify the thoughts. I simply observe the thoughts that are coming to me. And then I listen, so it's important that you, again, breathe, move your body, and then be in stillness so that you can listen and observe without judgment. And that's going to help you make a more informed and logical business decision versus operating from emotion, because a lot of people make business decisions based from emotion, and then they set themselves up for failure.
I love that, because that actually validates a lot of what I've been doing lately, getting up, going on walks. Like I said, that movement that sets the tone for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And trying to meditate a lot more. I used to meditate and I stopped, and getting back into it. Everything you mentioned, I've personally felt the difference in how it impacts your decision making. And I think oftentimes people think of yoga as like folks are being zen and even keeled all the time. And it's, it's also often seen as a quiet and internal practice. But I know as a businessman, you have to be sort of loud and, and external, right? So how do you protect your creative headspace? Is it the same practices, or, how do you protect your creative headspace from the noises, from when you're dealing with the back end and marketing and you're going on these runs? Do you do the same thing? Is it through exercise and this breath work as well?
So I operate in my multiple different verticals of my business with a lot of masculine energy. I'm in production mode. I'm producing. I'm people managing. I'm replying to emails. I'm going to meetings. I'm doing. And our nervous system only has a certain amount of bandwidth for that type of work. So to your point, to re-regulate myself, I have to take times and moments of stillness. I like to be alone. My decompression time looks like, quite honestly, laying in bed and not doing anything. We call that yoga nidra, actually. That's a particular type of practice. But it also looks like creativity and creative play. Things that brought me joy as a child: watching anime, playing video games, anything that makes me laugh, watching stand-up comedy, things that make me laugh. And of course, movement and, the more formal yoga things, those are a part of the recipe as well. But I think it's important that every entrepreneur, every business person can have a toolkit of things. We call it a dopamine checklist. They have a toolkit of things that give them the dopamine and endorphins that make them feel settled and fulfilled in their lives. So they don't just feel like their whole life is a list of things simply to do. Most people live like that. They're just a checklist. I check this off. And then by the time they get in bed, they're just scrolling and death scrolling on Instagram and feel completely empty and do it all over again. What are you doing, and what can you check off in your life that actually brings you joy? And if you don't know what that is, stepping away from certain things, sometimes doing less is more. Sometimes we feel like as business people, we got to grab onto this opportunity. But if you stay still and allow things to simply come to you, sometimes the opportunities will scale to a much higher level. You'll get much more clarity on what your needs are. So yeah, if you can identify something in your life that brings you joy, take some time to step away from certain things that's not serving you. Expose yourself to new ideas of thought that will maybe give you what that thing is.
How do you deal with imposter syndrome today? Are you still dealing with it? And how do you deal with that?
There's ebbs and flows of it. Being the individual who I am, I come from Albany, Georgia, so you can hear the Southern accent. To your point, code switching, or as W. Du Bois, 20th century philosopher, described as double consciousness, peering through the world through the gaze of another, it creates a masking in our psychological system that eventually will drain us. We're performing, and the more you perform, your spirit recognizes that is not self, and I can't be sustainable in this place. And so that drain can affect how you show up in your business, but then how you show up at home when you go back home to your family and your wife and your kids, or your brother and your sister, or whatever it may be. I'm luckily in an industry, in the wellness industry, fundamentally, the idea is to be well is to be authentically yourself. Now, of course, there are people who aren't doing that. And, again, that's not going to be sustainable. But I have learned that it is to my best interest, both spiritually and to my business best interest, to be authentic to myself. When I first came out, I was working at, gyms where it was corporate structure. I had to work, had to say certain things, move a certain way. But now that I own my own business, you're going to hear my Southern twang. That code switch ain't coming. You know what I'm saying? You're going to hear the way I talk. And quite frankly, those who aren't from my culture, they enjoy it because I'm so comfortable in myself, and I allow them to feel comfortable in themselves as well. And so my advice to people, to business, to black men, black women, people of color who are operating at maybe a high level in a space where you don't see much of yourself, please continue being yourself because your voice is necessary in that room. The more you are authentic, especially when you're in a room full of decision makers, the more the needs of people who look like you are going to be felt and heard because your culture is going to move in that room. So, at a grand level, there's some days that's better than others in terms of, how am I comfortable in myself. But overall, I'm in a good place. I'm not switching up for you.
Man, I love it. I couldn't agree more, honestly. I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
But I absolutely agree with everything that you said. I have some quick fire questions for you. So we're just going to go through a few, meaning just one or the other.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Here we go. Yoga mat or the spreadsheet? Which tool do you actually use more?
Yoga mat.
What's your walkout song when you're heading into a big business meeting?
Project Pat. No Getty.
Early morning meditation or late night grind?
Early morning meditation.
If you had to start over today with 500, what's the first thing you're buying?
I was about to say a computer, but you can't buy a computer with $500. A phone.
The biggest myth about being a Zen business owner?
That you're always calm.
What's more important for starting a company, consistency or creativity?
You're going to hate me. I'm going to say consistency.
Japan or DC?
Japan.
One last one. Jay-Z or Nas?
Oh. Don't hate me, but Jay-Z.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned you're a Nas fan. Which album or song helped you through life the most?
Illmatic Likes a Bitch. For sure.
And let me just squeeze in a few more questions for you. Do you believe that musicians today are utilizing their platforms to have a positive impact on society and fight for equality and equity as their forefathers did, such as, Public Enemy?
Bob Marley.
Yeah, exactly. Do you believe they are? And if you do, can you name one or two artists that you think are doing that?
Quite frankly, I believe there are musicians who are doing it, but I think the corporate structures at a larger level aren't doing it. And my favorite artists are Kendrick Lamar. Who else would I say? The J. Cole's, those type of people. Yeah. And I think their work is very necessary.
I couldn't agree more. Can you give me your top 5 hip hop artists? Do you have a top 5?
You're going to judge me. Kendrick's at the top of that list, actually. Tupac, Jay-Z, T.I. I'm from Georgia. And it would be the T.I. or Andre 3000. And let me see who's the 5th on that list. Who is the 5th on that list for me? I'll say Nas, yeah.
Man, there's no judgment, man. That sounds a lot like my list.
It is.
So I can't say anything. Give me your favorite hip hop R&B duet song.
Right now, Luther. Yeah, Kendrick and SZA. Yeah, for sure.
Dope answer. Great, man. It's great talking to you, man. Thank you.
It is. All right, brother. Appreciate you.